domain expansion. Third dimension! Howdy folks, if you've been here before and you're wondering why I changed my style, the answer to that's quite simple. Tremors! You might have also been observant enough to notice that the model's not really all that complete. I'm missing my turtleneck and zipper right now, so we're just gonna kind of lightly use it this video. Just bear with me, I'm working on it. And if you're new here, hi. Consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Or don't. I mean, you do you. I'm not your mom. Unrelated, you're out of milk. Listen, you've read the title of the video already, so you know what's coming, unless you can't read for one reason or another, in which case let me just go ahead and segue to the point. Over my extensive history with video games, I've developed opinions about video games, and while I'd argue that a good chunk of my opinions are at the very least reasonable, there are a good amount of them I'd consider hot takes. And I'm not talking about like the, oh, that's kind of like lukewarm hot. I'm talking about like literally third-degree burn sent to the hospital hot. And I mean some serious opinions that could ruin my credibility. So what better to do than monetize my downfall? Anyways, in this video, I'll be giving some of my hot takes about video games ranging from weird to evil incarnate. If you find I make good points, leave a like. If you want to tell me my opinions earn me a trip to the psych ward, leave a comment. I'll be more than happy to respond. Let's do this. Hot take number 1. Story is the least important part to a game. Now let me clarify, I understand some games tell really legendary stories. Like, I love the stories for the new God of War games, and I think they do a stellar job expanding on the old Ghost of Sparta. That being said, just let me ask you a serious question. Do you need a story to have fun? Because, you know, from my experience, so far my answer's been no. I don't think you do. And if you don't believe me, I'm just gonna sling out a handful of strong examples to solidify my stance. 2D Sonic games never needed deep lore. You're there for the unique platforming, the levels, and physics. Go beat up robots and Eggman, have a grand old time. Binding of Isaac, the story only gives mild context, otherwise you're focusing on breaking your run and defeating intense bosses. Dark Souls literally benches the story into item descriptions. And then there's Minecraft, which doesn't need an explanation and is the best-selling game of all time. You see, based on experience, all I've deducted is that at the end of the day, all that matters is that the gameplay is good. Like, don't get me wrong, a story can help you surely get sucked into the world of the game and get you all immersed into it, but it's really the gameplay that keeps you there. And as a matter of fact, I'm so much of a brainlet that if I'm playing the game for the second time, I'll just skip the cutscenes. Don't bother me with that shit. I just want to play the game. I don't play games to read. I don't play games to watch a movie. I play games to suplex God! So it's in my honest opinion that if games just yeeted the story out the window, I wouldn't be all that butthurt about it. Just make the game fun. Make sense? No? Well, too damn bad. Take 2. Realism in games usually ruins them. Look, let me just cut to the chase. I don't play games to be reminded of real life. I play them to avoid real life. So when I say realism ruins games, I really mean it. Realistic graphics always age like milk that's been left on a sidewalk in Texas. Realistic gameplay does not excite me in the slightest. Sometimes it even angers me. Payday 3 is a phenomenal example of how worse off a game tends to get when you move to realism. Payday 2 was known for not only being a power fantasy, but a power fantasy with over-the-top weapons and heists. I mean, you can beat a cop's ass with an oversized spoon wearing a mask of a president that looks like 50 Shades of Barney's spew. And it's one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had because of that. Then Payday 3 was all like, yo, what if we took Payday 2 and made it realistic? Payday 3's sudden shift to become realistic immediately resulted in the game losing almost every player it had and made everyone run back to Payday 2. And to be fair, Payday 3 has gotten better, but it's still got a lot of the main issues that made it boring and unfun, I'm just saying. The skills were boring, the weapon variety wasn't interesting, dozers can't feasibly be mowed down anymore without specifically building for it, and really the only fun thing that survived was making masks look dreadful. Does that sound fun to you? Does that sound fun? If you need another example, Project Zomboid, which I won't have footage for because I refunded it within the 2 hours. And that'd be because of how much it doubles down on realism despite it being a zombie game. Like, don't get me wrong, I like some of the mechanics of the game. I like the line of sight, I liked the fact that you had audio-based mechanics, I loved the fact that you could pick traits and kind of make this custom character by taking bad traits and good ones to balance it out. Like, the game had a lot going for it. My only problem was how long it takes for a character to read a skill book. Skill books take a lot of real time to read, and if you don't believe me, depending on your skills and your traits you've picked, it can take you up to 40 minutes of real time to finish a skill book. Imagine experiencing the gaming equivalent of watching paint dry and then saying, wow, this is fun. I don't want to be forced to wait that long just to be able to make basic shit, on top of which, if your character dies, they're gone. So that's legit an hour of your waiting for your character to understand how to nail a board to a wall down the drain. Realism is not fun. Games that forego realism for the sake of player enjoyment are usually better off for it. End of story. Take 3. Live service games aren't a bad thing. The takes just get worse from here, folks. Live service games, for those who don't know what that means, are games that are always online with the expectation that more content is added as the game is supported. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, though granted that would require that the company that made the live service game continues to support it like it promises. I mean, just look at Helldivers 2. That game is a live service, but it has received a cult-like fan base and gets updates pretty regularly. You know, aside from the fact that Sony did some stupid PR shit lately, like making the game unavailable in other countries after they realized they couldn't link a PSN account in them, the game has more or less received positive feedback. I mean, there's also Fortnite, Roblox, and I don't hear anyone complaining about World of Warcraft. I think the real problem that people have is when a game is live service for zero actual reason, Payday 3, cough. Or when a game releases in an unplayable state due to being live service, achoo, Payday 3. Man, there must be something in the air today. Anyways, I think if game companies treated live services with more care, I don't think they'd get as many complaints. My gripe is when the games charge $70 to be eventually unplayable due to inevitable server shutdowns, which is the only thing that Payday 3 did right by selling the game for $40. Up until I realized it wasn't even worth $40. And about the game eventually being unplayable, let's be real. A lot of you watching this video probably have numerous games in your collection, but I bet you have at least 10 games you haven't played in years or probably won't play again. Also, by technicality, every game is eventually unplayable. Steam won't be around forever. When it shuts down, you'll lose all the games you bought. The Wii and Wii U online shops shut down, so you can't feasibly play games that haven't been ported to Switch yet. And eventually, just the nature with technology in general, all consoles will expire at some point. So I think the real issue is that AAA companies are making an unplayable live service game more than the fact they're making a live service game. But that's just me, I suppose, and I understand I'm probably on death row for that take, so you know, here we go. Take 4. I'm kind of scared of admitting this one. I didn't like Bloodborne. I want to make it especially clear, I don't think Bloodborne is a bad game. The praise it gets is certainly warranted, and I can see why people like it. It's fast, it's hectic, and it's all about that flashy goodness while having the trademark Souls-like difficulty. I wish I could show some gameplay, but I don't have a capture card, so just pretend like the gameplay behind me is Bloodborne. I don't know what it is, just look, Bloodborne. That's Bloodborne right there. Now the question you're probably wanting to ask is, well, if you know the game is good, what actually stopped you from enjoying it? Skill issues. That's right, I couldn't get into the game because I never figured it out. I've played through the Dark Souls series, and Dark Souls 3 has my highest New Game Plus count. That being said, I could never figure out how I was supposed to play Bloodborne. The combat styles between Dark Souls and Bloodborne are pretty much polar opposites in my opinion. Dark Souls is slower, more methodical, but the hits you both deal and take are heavier. Bloodborne is lighter, faster, flashier, requires a completely different mindset to enjoy, and that mindset was exactly something I just could not shift into. I could never figure out when I was supposed to use the gun to stun the enemy, or how to dash correctly to move out of the way of the attacks, or nor did I even get the speed of the game down, it was just too fast. My Unga Bunga caveman brain just couldn't process it. So truly, honest to goodness, I could not enjoy Bloodborne because I literally have a skill issue. Could I work through it? Sure. I think with enough practice, anyone could. But I already spent way too long trying to figure out how to play it, so I'd rather just go back to Dark Souls 3. That sound fair? Great, because my final take is going to be my worst take ever. Prepare yourself. Take 5. I prefer DLC over a sequel. Period. Don't hit that button! Let me explain. I will say, straight up, I understand this is a wildly unpopular opinion that I'm not proud of, but it's the truth. Let me paint you a picture. Take your favorite game. Think of how many hours you've sunk in and how much fun you've had, but now your game has run dry on content, updates have ended, and you are left with a rumor that a sequel is in development. You wait patiently to experience what's supposed to be an improvement on the original formula. New graphics, new music, better gameplay loop, everything. The sequel finally drops, and after many years of waiting, it's the worst launch the franchise has ever seen. The sequel has removed everything that makes the game what it is. It launched unplayable for days, and now what you're left with is a game that is painfully hollow compared to the previous title, while the better version of the game is now left in the dust for a worse off product. I wonder what game fits this description. Okay, ripping on Payday 3 aside, let me tell you, I'm aware of the danger this mentality has. There are plenty of games that have way too much DLC. Sims 4, Stellaris, Total War, Warhammer, and City Skylines, and even Payday 2 had this exact problem. You can't feasibly catch up in these games unless it's a Steam sale, and it's still usually a wallet cleanser. However, aside from Sims 4, I think we can all agree that these games are solid experiences from start to finish despite this conundrum. Meanwhile, if we take the video's Punching Bag as an example, a sequel requires them to remake systems that they already got right in the previous title, which Payday 3 failed on and is currently going through a rework update line which, while fixing a lot of the problems, still doesn't change the fact that they went for a realistic approach at first instead of the wackiness the series was known for at this point. In other words, a sequel is more likely to goof up the fun of a game more than one expansion pack. Then there's the other factor, cost. Buying a whole new game at the year of 2024 from a high-budget studio is $70, which is disgusting. However, the average price of an expansion in a game usually ranges from like 10 to 20 bucks, unless you're EA with The Sims 4, in which case, perish. So for a fraction of the cost, you can get more content for the game that is already good without coughing up $70 for a title. Now that being said, we do need to address the other main issue, DLC bloat. As I mentioned before, DLC bloat is a real thing that can scare away a new player. Many games with tons of DLC tend to intimidate someone, making them think that they have to buy all the expansions to enjoy the game, which is in most cases true. So this would make DLC greater than sequels seem like an invalid argument right away. But what if I told you a company known for its notoriously atrocious monetization scheme has already solved this problem decades ago in their flagship game? World of Warcraft, while being a microtransaction membership wasteland, actually knew this would become a problem and made a very unique expansion plan. If you didn't know, WoW has had 9 expansions over the course of its lifespan. 9 expansions priced at $40 to $50 would easily rack up as one of the more expensive games to get into, especially since you need a membership to play the game on top of that. And trust me, if a new player had to buy all 9 expansions to play the game, they wouldn't play the game. However, Blizzard actually made a solution to this issue that I think more companies looking to keep a game living long term should consider. In World of Warcraft, you only need to buy the most recent expansion to get all previous missed expansions content. New players now only have to get 1 expansion to get everything from the past. But what if you're an old player that missed a few expansions because life happened? Same story. 1 expansion and you're caught up. Period. Granted, you have a lot more lore to get through and raids, but hey, I think anyone would take that over having to buy every expansion individually. I joined in Shadowlands, took a break, and skipped Dragonflight. Then they announced Stone Dwarves and PvE content without role queue and War with Thin, so I bought the newest expansion in Blammo, Dragonflight complimentary with my purchase. This expansion model is so good that the only reason a company wouldn't want to do this is just because of money. Now, I should mention that Paradox is kinda trying by offering a membership service to experience all expansions for a cheaper price than buying the expansions in bulk. But honestly, I'd rather just buy 1 expansion to be caught up with all of it. Now, I know this take is unpopular, but with what I've experienced, it's a hill I'm willing to meet God over. And those have been my hot takes. If you liked what you saw here today, you already know what to do. This has been The Bomb Dweller. Hopefully the 3D model is done next time.